But it's yours truly, your boy Dan here, for part 2 of our body awareness journey. In part 1, as a quick recap, we covered upper body positioning while seating down, alright? In this video, quick, simple, and easy, we're going to take care of the hips. And often what times happens when sitting for too long is we get an impingement of the hips. So all that means is you're pinching your hips forward or they're stuck in a flexed position for too long. Basically what happens there shortens up a lot of the tissue, a lot of the hip flexors in the front of the body here. That causes shortening of the tissues and shifts your weight forward. Whenever there's a shift of weight forward, all that means is your center of mass is coming forward, which means the back side of your body has to work that much harder to support. This is where we see things like lumbar issues, low back issues, glute issues, even upper back issues can translate as well. Alright, so we're going to take care of that today with 2 fantastic stretches. One is a flexibility stretch and the other one is a mobility stretch. If you don't know the difference, you got to check out part 2, the written blog, and you can see the difference between those 2 there. Alright, let's hit it. First one that I love doing to open up the hip, alright, and there's a lot of ways to stretch and open up the hip, but for the purpose of today, we're going to do these 2 because they're probably my favorite. Alright, for stretch number 1, we're going to do a hip flexor stretch. What do the hip flexors do? Well, they flex the hip, alright, pretty obvious, pretty simple. Stay with me here. We're going to line one leg forward, one leg slightly back, and all you're going to do is you're going to stand up tall and drop the hip forward, alright? What you're doing is you're opening up the tissue here, alright? I'm going to scoot my knee forward a little bit more. And what you want to try to do is maintain a nice 90-degree angle here while pushing or driving this hip forward. Anytime you're stretching or working on opening up tissue, you always want to be aware of number 1, posture, but number 2, how far or how much you can take with the pull of the stretch. There's not a competition who can rip more connective tissue. It's just about feeling a nice slight pull and then easing into the stretch, allowing your body to take over. Breathing is super important in your stretch. Deep breaths is excellent. And what you want to hold this for is about 10 seconds if you're new to stretching, and anywhere upwards of 30 seconds to a minute. For stretching, you don't really need to go much longer than that. That'll do the trick, alright? If you're just holding this position, you can occasionally squeeze your bum by engaging the glute right there, squeezing, and then releasing tension will help open up the hip there, alright? So, that's stretch number 1, alright? Flexibility, lengthening of the muscle tissue. Mobility, we're going to focus on the joint capsule, alright? So we're already at the hips, let's open up the hip. So I'm going to assume the same position, except I'm going to back the leg up a little bit more, alright? So I have a nice opening up here. I'm going to put one hand on the ground, while my other hand is going to gently push open my hip. So I'm creating an open hip. What I don't want to see happen here is the foot come off the ground, because it's going to want to. You have to keep it there and apply pressure in opening up that hip. You're going to have a nice straight back like I have right now. I shouldn't see any deviations. Remember in our first video, protecting the spine. And all you're doing is leaning and pressing against that hip. Alright? So you're opening up your hip capsule. We call this a hip opener, hence the name. When you're doing mobility stretches, you want to focus on holding the stretch for about 2 minutes, a little bit longer than your normal flexibility stretches. Reason being is soft tissue, depending on what literature you read, generally starts to change and starts to release in about 2 minutes minimum, at the minimum. So if you're new to this, start simple. A 2-minute hold for your hip opener, alright, and about 30 seconds to a minute for your hip flexor stretch. These 2 moves will have those hips opening up and help any problems you've had with sitting too long. Alright? This has been part 2. Make sure you check out the first video if you haven't done so. Read the blogs. Stay in touch for more, guys. Have a great night.